Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, an NLDS win. Julio went 5. The bullpen went the rest of the way. We'll get into what we liked, what we didn't like, and look ahead to Game 2. That's what's on tap, so make sure to keep it Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans, welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. This is a daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And if you don't want to miss a day, because you know we're not going to miss a day, just subscribe in all those places and you'll get it directly delivered to you. If this is your first time listening or watching, I'm Samperio. That's my co-host, Jeff Snider. And we combine to bring you Locked On Dodgers every weekday morning. We are both guys that have been lifelong Dodger fans, but also cover the team in a few ways, have covered the team in a few ways, and continue to do so. And while we're not quite insiders, we bring the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. I think I said that like 3 times. So I think you guys know every weekday morning we're here for you. But Dodgers won Game 1 of the NLDS against the Padres. It was looking like it might be not as stressful day early on, then got a little bit more stressful. But the Dodgers bullpen shut it down. And I guess we can start there because this first segment is going to be about what we liked and what we saw in Game 1. And we'll start with the bullpen because that's what, didn't win them the game, but it was a reason the Dodgers won the game.
Yeah, absolutely. After Julio only got through 5 innings, we knew that they were going to need some big innings from the bullpen. We'd need probably 4 relievers, and that's what they ended up using. And they brought in Evan Phillips first which made sense because it was that part of the lineup, and you knew at that point, you're going to need to get through the Soto Machado part of the lineup twice through the rest of the game. So it makes sense to use Phillips for the first one. And because the game's within 2 runs at that point, you don't know what the score is going to be in the 9th inning when they come up again. So use Phillips there. And then it felt like it was going to backfire because Soto worked a walk and then Machado hit a little dinky tapper down the line that ended up being an infield single. And suddenly it's first and second, nobody out. But Phillips got a huge strike out of Josh Bell, and then that double play for me, like that double play was maybe the play of the game or the moment of the game because it was dangerous. It's a 2-run game at that point, and that ball was hit pretty hard, and Gavin Lux made a great play going to his left, spins around, feeds it to Trey Turner, covering the bag at second. He double clutched, but got it off in time to get it to Freddie Freeman at first base for the double play to end the inning. And I felt like that was the Padres' chance. Yeah, they had couple more base runners the rest of the game, but I feel like that was their chance to get back in the game and tie it or take the lead or whatever. And when the Dodgers got out of that inning unscathed, that kind of took that stress off for me.
Yeah, it was one of those. I mean, the day started. We're going to talk about the bullpen. The day started with Craig Kimbrell not being on the postseason roster, which was one of the things that I liked for sure. And as the game got into the bullpen and as it got close, once it was 5-3, got into the bullpen, the very least, you don't feel that, oh man, Kimbrell's going to pitch the 9th or Kimbrell's going to pitch, whatever. You didn't have to worry about that. And you pretty much at this point, for the most part, trust every other arm out there other than maybe, Blake Trinan might be the one that you don't trust only because we haven't really seen him and who knows how he's going to come out of injury. But you trust everybody else, and we saw exactly that. We saw the arms that got them there, the arms that have been good for them the entire season or since they got them in Chris Martin. And, strike one for Vince for playoff X factor. Alex Vesia getting 5 big outs. That was huge. That was, saves an arm for tomorrow. And, it was big, and he's the only lefty in the pen. He got Profar batting from the other side. He got Juan Soto, from the left side. And the Dodgers went to Gratterall, which was a little interesting in that sense, just because, the Gratterall-Machado matchups are fun to watch. But Machado gets the best of Graterol just as much as Graterol gets the best of him. I would imagine it's very close in their ways in the times they faced each other. But yeah, I mean, like I said, bullpen, all good. And they still have the arms ready to go tomorrow. They still have Almonte. They still have Trinan. We don't know exactly what the plan is for Dustin May, who did also make the roster, but he's available. And, Tommy Kahnle is still available. So they still got arms ready to go tomorrow. And I would imagine Kershaw's going to give them a little bit more length than Julio did.
Yeah, I think that's the hope. But yeah, they have, by my count, up to 7 relievers available tomorrow, depending on what they're planning on doing with May and Heaney. But you've got Graterol, who only threw 1 pitch. He'll be available. Almonte, Kahnle, Martin, I assume, would be available again, having just, he didn't throw very many pitches in that 9th inning. And Trinan. So it's, they're in really good shape, despite what AJ Pierzynski might have thought during the broadcast that, I don't know if you heard this, Vince, because you were at the game, but when Vesia was pitching in the 7th inning, AJ Pierzynski said, I need to write down the exact quote, but I promise you I'm not misrepresenting what he said. When he basically said the Dodgers have used Phillips and Vesia, their 2 highest leverage relievers. How are they going to get through the last 2 innings? And who are they going to have for tomorrow? Which suggests to me that perhaps AJ Pierzynski didn't do quite as much homework as maybe he should have coming into this series, because the Dodgers do have a very deep bullpen, and that's something that everybody recognizes, and it's one of their biggest strengths as a team overall this season and in this postseason. One thing I am interested to see tomorrow, because as you mentioned, Vesia is their only lefty in the bullpen, not counting Heaney. We don't really know what the plan is with Heaney, if they're going to go with a piggyback start or use him as a true reliever. But I am interested to see what they do to face Soto tomorrow in game 2 after Kershaw's out of the game. But Dave Roberts did say after the game today in his press conference that he doesn't really think of Soto in terms of left-right, because Soto's so good against everybody. But Soto is definitely much better against right-handers. This year he had a 942 OPS against righties, 701 against lefties. And his batting average wasn't great against anybody this year, but he batted just 210 against lefties, only a 354 slugging percentage. Only 7 of his 27 homers came against lefties. So he is definitely better against righties. And the Dodgers do have some guys with reverse splits, or at least neutral splits. So maybe they just go with one of those guys, maybe Kahnle with that changeup, but I that's something I'm really interested to see in game 2.
Yeah. And other things we like was the offense, the first 3 innings of the game, because they did what they were supposed to do. They knocked out Mike Clevinger before the 3rd inning. They scored 5 runs. They looked like they were on the way to, scoring more runs, because they were going to get into the Padres bullpen real early. The Padres bullpen isn't necessarily the strongest bullpen out there. But I guess I'll save the second part of that for the second segment. But yeah, the offense looked good early on. Trey Turner, big home run, Max Muncy clutch 2-out hit. And then they, didn't really need the home run the rest of the way. They got the rest of the runs via base hits and anything else that came with it. So that part was fun. But yeah, we'll get into the other part maybe later. But yeah, offense, cool for the first 3 innings.
Yeah, and your goal when Mike Clevinger is starting the game, knowing how Clevinger has been this year, is to go out and knock Clevinger around, knock him out of the game, get into the bullpen, put some runs on the board. And they did exactly that. And, they did have a few chances. Trey Turner almost hit a second home run later in the game that turned into a fly out. It's not like they were totally inept after, even though they didn't get a hit after the 3rd inning. But yeah, it was, like you said, we'll talk about the negative in a minute, but getting those 5 runs off Clevinger, which with this Dodgers pitching staff, most of the time 5 runs is all you need. And I've mentioned before, the boom or bust thing, that's a game level thing, and 5 runs that's a boom game in the postseason. They won the game on those 5 runs, and yeah, it would have been nice to get more, but a lot of things would be nice that you don't actually need.
Yeah. And the other part I'll add real quick was the crowd. The crowd was into it from the beginning. NLDS crowds have been interesting in the last few years, just because the Dodgers have made it to the NLDS so many times, 10 straight years. but it was there from the beginning. The stadium was rocking, and it was a fun atmosphere. Maybe I think a little bit too much hostility toward the Padres and some of their fans, at least from what I saw, but nothing over the top. Just worry more about cheering for the Dodgers instead of berating the Padres, I would say, if you're a fan.
Yeah, absolutely. The best way to show that it's not a rivalry is stop treating it like a rivalry all the time. Go there, support your team, and that we don't chant beat SD, we don't chant beat SF, we chant let's go Dodgers. So focus on the Dodgers and bring us home another win in game 2.
Yeah, we're gonna get into what we didn't like, but first let's talk about Roan, because I don't like dress shirts. Dress shirts are annoying. I don't wear them. I try to avoid them by all times. I'm a t-shirt type of guy. And Roan can help you out because it can make you look good. It can make you feel good. And you don't have to worry about changing clothes when you go to different activities. If you got a Saturday planned with a bunch of things, Roan has you covered because the dress shirt was made for a radical reinvention, and Roan stepped up to the challenge. Their commuter shirt is the most comfortable, breathable, and flexible shirt known to man. And here's why. It's mobile. It's got 4-way stretch fabric. I don't know how many ways normal fabric stretches, but this Roan stretches 4 ways. Breathability, flexibility, lets you, whatever you're doing. If you're going to work, if you're playing golf, if you're hanging out, whatever you're doing, Roan has you covered. And no wrinkles. You don't got to worry about it. With their wrinkle release technology, you put the shirt on, you stretch it out a little bit, and the wrinkles disappear that easy. And they got Gold's Fusion anti-odor technology. So you'll be smelling fresh and clean all day long. As long as you're wearing the shirt, you'll be smelling clean all day long. And it's machine washable, so you can ditch the dry cleaner. All that out of a t-shirt, that's a lot. Roan got it. Everything you need right there. And right now, you can get the commuter shirt that can get you through any workday and whatever else comes next at roan.com/lockedon with the promo code lockedon, and you'll get 20% off your entire order. That's 20% off your entire order when you head to RHONE.com/lockedon and use the promo code lockedon. It's time to find your corner office comfort. All right, Jeff. So Dodgers, not all good in a 5-3 win. The win is the most important part, but there was some concern in certain areas. For me, I would say the main concern, like I said, the offense after third inning. Yes, you get into a Padres bullpen and you're facing, different arms every inning pretty much the rest of the way. But it was, like I said, not a hit after the third inning. They really never really put up a threat. And we've seen this from the Dodgers in the past. Now, yes, different team, different players, everything else. But we've seen the Dodgers get up early, put runs early. This time they knocked out the starter. Sometimes they don't knock out the starter. If you remember Game 5 of 2019 NLDS, they got to Strasburg early, then he settled in, and it kind of fell back. And we all know what happened after that. But yeah, it was Mookie didn't do much. Freddie didn't do much. Trey Turner almost had 2 home runs, but did have a home run and a double. Will Smith had 2 doubles, but you didn't get the production you wanted. And they did have some chances to break the game open even more, and unfortunately it didn't work out. 5 runs is good, so it's a little bit of a stretch to call the offense bad, but the offense from innings 4 through 9, that's what I didn't like, or 4 through 8.
Yeah, there is no 9th inning. It's if you have to find a negative, sure, and that's what we're doing. We're talking about the game, and it wasn't a perfect game, and there was, there was the offense did struggle those last 5 innings for 5 1/3 innings. Against the relief pitchers. But yeah, I don't even know. Like maybe it's just my optimistic nature, but I have a hard time being too fired up about it, and knowing even every out they made, I'm like, hey, these pitchers are throwing, Pierce Johnson had to go 2 innings. Steven Wilson came out and pitched a 2nd inning after getting the 3rd out in the 3rd inning. They have other pitchers. Obviously, I know that Suarez guy is good. They have Josh Hader. My hope is that we don't even see Hader because they never get into a save situation. But yeah, it's hard to get too fired up about not scoring more than 5 runs. And you mentioned that Game 5 of the 2019 NLDS, the game that shall not be named, and yet we keep talking about it. But there's a huge difference between 5 runs and knocking the guy out of the game and 3 runs and letting him off the hook. And that is something that they got a big hit from Max Muncy, a big hit from Gavin Lux, 2 guys who we're hoping they contribute. For me, I guess if I had to pick one negative, really, besides just that, the Dodgers' performance as relievers is the fact that they didn't get anything at all from Mookie or Freddie in the game. And, but to put up 5 runs with nothing from Mookie or Freddie, 2 of your big 3 don't do anything. It's pretty impressive. And if anything, that negative actually makes me optimistic for tomorrow, because it seems unlikely to me that Mookie and Freddie are going to have back-to-back bad games. And so, Yu Darvish is a better pitcher than Mike Clevinger. It's funny, like 3 years ago, would we have said that Yu Darvish is obviously a better pitcher than Mike Clevinger? I don't know. But right now he definitely is. But I feel like there's a lot more in the tank for this offense. And, they may not get 5 runs off Darvish tomorrow, but if they could put up a 3 or 4 spot, I think they have a pretty good chance. And so my annoying personality, even the negatives, just lead me to more positive thoughts.
Jeff, you need to be more negative. I don't understand what
I'm trying.
But I mean, the other part too is it is a positive in the sense that the Dodgers saw a lot of their Padres relievers. They didn't necessarily see some of the best ones, but they saw the ones that are, if they get guys out early, if Blake Snell has trouble throwing strikes like he did in his last start and he comes out early, the Dodgers are going to see some of these guys they saw today. That's what's ideal. And yeah, like I said, runs are going to be harder to come by against Darvish, but the Dodgers did get to Darvish a couple of times this season, so it's very possible. But, we don't know. But yeah, it was just at the very least, the Dodgers not hitting in innings 4 through 8 helped the game pick up a little bit, because it was an hour and a half and we were barely in the 4th inning. Then it picked up a little bit after that. So that was another benefit to the Dodgers not putting up runs. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, other negative, I guess Julio only going 5 and, losing a little bit at the end, but it was, it is what it is. It's postseason. It's very rare that we see Dodger pitchers, for whatever reason, very rare that we see Dodger pitchers, have some of these dominant games that we see from other guys on other teams. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, because like I said, this year the bullpen is a strength and you don't have to really, worry about it too much if they only go 5 or 6. But yeah, I mean, I guess negative Julio giving up those 3 runs in that 1 inning.
Yeah, that's definitely probably the biggest negative for me, is that he didn't get deeper in the game. They did have to use 4 relievers. Again, their bullpen depth is a strength. Off the top of your head, Vince, can you remember the last time Julio allowed 3 or more runs in a game?
No.
His second to last start before the All-Star break, that 5-run game against the Cubs in LA. That's the last time he allowed more than 2 runs in a game, which is remarkable. The entire second half of the season, he didn't do it. And, in 2020 or 2021, Julio was the beneficiary of a lot of run support. And this year, not as much. Later in the season, it got a little bit better, but early in the season, he had some bad luck there. And this was kind of returned to 2021 form of the offense, giving him some run support because imagine if the Dodgers only score 1 run, this entire episode we'll be talking about Julio picked a terrible time to have a bad game, but because the offense showed up, the story, Julio having a bad game, quote unquote, bad game for him, it's an afterthought. It's the thing we mentioned 17 and a half minutes into the episode. Oh yeah, by the way, Julio wasn't great tonight. But because the offense showed up and the bullpen showed up, it doesn't matter. And that's one of the things I love about this team, that most of the time that's the case. If one thing goes wrong, they're going to be fine. It's when two or 3 or 4 things go wrong, that's when they run into trouble.
And it was interesting that the inning that everyone thought he might have issues with was the 4th inning, because the bottom of the 3rd lasted so long and he breezed through the top of the 4th and then, lost a little bit in the top of the 5th. And I think other part that's also, if you think about it as a Dodger fan, that Freddie and Mookie aren't going to have bad games like that again. The Padres' bottom of the order is still outplaying the top of the order, which if it reverses, I guess it doesn't matter too much, but although the top of the order can do a little bit more damage than the bottom of the order in terms of slug. So I guess that would be a negative. And if you want to have thoughts like that of eventually the top of the order should get their hits here and there, but that also means the Dodgers should get their hits here and there. And, realistically, when it comes down to it, if it's going to come down to both teams are getting their hits here and there, I would trust the Dodgers bullpen and pitching staff more than I do the Padres at this point.
Yep. Yeah, there's no such thing as a must-win game in game one of a series, but game one of a 5-game series really does set the tone for the series. I don't know how often the winner of game one wins a 5-game series, but I assume it's a lot more than half the time. And it was, if the Padres had managed to steal this game with Clevinger starting against Julio, it would have really, really bolstered their hopes. And the Dodgers winning, isn't quite as big a deal, but also on the other hand, because it would have been such a big deal for the Padres, it was closer to a must-win game for the Dodgers, I think, and they won. And so, I got nothing else negative to say.
I mean, based on MLB's, what their theory is, this is supposed to be the game you have the advantage in. This is the advantage for having the bye and everything else. You don't get to face their number one or their number two. And in this case, the Dodgers didn't get to face their number three either. So this was the game that you had to win, as the Dodgers did. And good for them and good for us. And we'll get into lineup talk and how we think it's going to go on Wednesday. But first, let's talk about Built Bar, because they have Built Bar Puffs. And if you haven't tried these, you are depriving yourself of something that's really great, because they got a new flavor. Cookie dough chunk puffs have a light, chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. All the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it. Plus, it's healthy for you. 160 calories, 15 grams of protein. That's perfect. Have a snack, have a meal replacement if you want, depending how you feel. But yeah, built.com, go get you a box. Cookie dough chunk puffs. They are great, and they're healthy, and they're tasty, and everything you could want. And it has, all Built Bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you. So go get the cookie dough chunk puff. Whether you need a snack for your workout, late night treat, whatever you need, Built is the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than a candy bar. So grab yourself a Built Bar at Built.com, and if you use the promo code LOCKEDON15, you'll get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKEDON15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, Jeff. So we talked about Kimbrough being left off the roster. The other one that, was the final spot kind of up for grabs was Hanser Alberto versus Miguel Vargas. Miguel Vargas ended up making it onto the roster. I don't think we weren't surprised. We said that was probably what was going to happen last night. Someone did ask if Hanser can still be in the dugout, and he's still allowed in the dugout. So Dave Roberts was happy about that as well. So we can talk about that if you want. I don't know what words there are to say about it. We talked about it before. But the other part is the lineup. Trayce Thompson got the start in left. And other than that, Max Muncy got to start in the actual field at third base. Justin Turner was the DH. I don't know if you have any qualms with the lineup for game one and what you see changing for the lineup in game two.
Yeah, no, I didn't have any issues with the lineup for game one. I thought it was basically the perfect lineup, and it actually made me laugh. I saw a bunch of people saying, surprised that Trayce Thompson was starting when Trayce Thompson was the obvious starter. Trayce Thompson, everybody knows, including Dave Roberts, that Trayce Thompson is better against right-handed pitching than left-handed pitching this year, and he earned that spot. He earned that start, and people were surprised that he was starting, which just kind of underscores the Dave Roberts derangement to me. It's like 75% of the time they're saying, oh, finally, that idiot Roberts did something right. And then 20% of the time they're saying this idiot never does anything right, when actually he did something right. And, 5% of the time it's this idiot never does anything right when he actually did something questionable. But if you're that surprised that often that Dave Roberts did something right, maybe you don't disagree with Dave Roberts as often as you think you do. So, yeah, even though Trayce Thompson didn't do anything in the game, I think it was absolutely the right call to start him. I guess he walked one time. And other than that, I mean, the lineup was basically a no-brainer, and it was a good lineup, really good managing. I'm interested to see what happens in the lineup against Darvish. I'm just pulling up right now the numbers for all the current Dodgers against Darvish in their careers, just to see, left field is the main question mark, I guess, who's going to start in left. And so Chris Taylor is 0 for 10 in his career against Darvish. Trayce Thompson has only faced him once, and struck out 0 for 1. Joey Gallo is 0 for 7. So no good options to start in left field. I assume they will have a left fielder in the game. Other than that, I think we're probably going to see mostly the same lineup. And I would guess it won't be Trace Thompson just because he doesn't have a proven track record against Darvish. I'm guessing they'll go with Chris Taylor out there, get him in the game, even though he has the longest track record of not doing anything against him. But yeah, I could see that going a lot of ways. But other than that, seems like it's a case of if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, and like I said, it was the lineup. The lineup came out. It was like, yeah, that's the lineup you wanted to see, and the change that's going to come for the rest of the series is going to be in who's playing left field, and it's a matter of, Trace is better against righties. He did have, in very small sample size, the better numbers against Clevinger, and that might have helped him out defensively. Obviously, between those three, between Taylor, Gallo, and Thompson, there's not too much difference in defense. Gallo's been a little bit, I don't know, shaky's not that's too strong of a word, but just maybe hasn't made all the plays you might think. He's been a right fielder most of his career, I'm pretty sure, and was with the Yankees and the Rangers for sure the last few years. So, but yeah, I think Taylor's probably the guy, just because, first of all, you want to see what he has. If it's between, Taylor, Gallo, Thompson, realistically, there's no right answer because none of them have the track record against Darvish, and none of them necessarily, Darvish is a guy that is hard to face because he throws so many pitches, and those guys are all guys that chase pitches out of the zone. And so, yeah, it's not a match made for any of those three. But I think you kind of need to see what Chris Taylor you have, and if that October Chris Taylor gets unlocked. And it's better to find out earlier in the postseason than it is to delay it a little bit more. But also, I guess Gallo, I think it'd be Taylor, Gallo, Thompson for tomorrow in that order of who I think would start.
And then the other question is at catcher. Clayton Kershaw's pitching. Do they go with Austin Barnes? I'm looking at Barnes and Smith's numbers against Darvish, and both of them each only have, Smith is 2 for 15. Barnes is 1 for 7. So very similar batting averages, but Barnes' one hit was a home run. So he actually has the third highest OPS against Darvish of anybody on the Dodgers right now. Freddie Freeman and Trey Turner both have quite a bit of success against Darvish in their careers. Freeman 318 with a 1036 OPS, Trey 353 with a 1000 OPS. So that's looking good. But yeah, at catcher, if they did go with Barnes, then you've got Smith, Muncy, and Taylor, who are Smith, Muncy, and Justin Turner, who are your options at DH, and none of those guys have done much. I don't know. Do you think that they will consider starting Barnes, or will they go with the fact that Will Smith is a much better hitter and not worry about the splits and not worry about who's pitching?
Honestly, I think they could ask Kershaw. I don't think Kershaw would want to sit Smith, knowing that his offense in general is better, knowing that they only have the two catchers. So if you bring in Smith later in the game, and once the bullpen's in or whatever the case is, then you're leaving yourself open a little bit. They've done it before, but you still always leave yourself open when you only have the two catchers on the roster and you do that substitution. But yeah, I don't know. The Kershaw Barnes thing was a lot bigger a few years ago than it is now, but it's still something that if he might feel more comfortable, and realistically, Kershaw going 6 innings, feeling comfortable and not allowing a run, or maybe just 1 or 2 runs, kind of outweighs what Will Smith might bring in those 6 innings of Austin Barnes being back there and in the lineup and him not. So yeah, I would still go with Smith just because I want to see Smith in there, but I honestly think they might ask Kershaw how he feels and have that conversation.
Yeah, they might. I'm strongly in favor of starting Smith. I generally believe better hitters have a better chance of getting hits, and I think Smith is a much better hitter than Barnes. So that's what I'm hoping for. Other than that, yeah, I think we see basically the same lineup we saw in Game 1 besides those 2 spots.
Yeah, so that's it. I don't know if you have anything else, Jeff. It was a solid Game 1 victory, and move on to Game 2.
Yeah, Game 2 is really important now. Obviously, every game, the next game is very important, but having a chance to go up 2 games to none, knowing you're going to see either Clevinger or Sean Manaea, whatever it is, in Game 5, if it gets there, that would be huge. This is a big, big game. I feel good about it because I think the Dodgers are a better team than the Padres, and I think they're quite a bit better. Dave Roberts had an interesting quote talking about how, well, I don't really think the season series really portrays how good that team is. They fought us really hard. And I looked at the numbers. It's like the Padres only won 5 games, and 4 of them, there were only 6 games in the season series between the two teams that were decided by 2 runs or less, and 4 of those were 4 of the 5 wins by the Padres. Like basically most of the time that they won, they barely won, and it was Craig Kimbrell blowing something or, these dumb little things. And the Dodgers wins were usually blowouts. So the fact that this one was as close as it was is actually an improvement for the Padres. So I think the Dodgers are a better team. And I think Kershaw is every bit as good as Darvish. And so I like the Dodgers' chances very, very much in Game 2.
There it is. That's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. Check out Locked On MLB for your second listen of the day with Paul Francis Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully. He's got the #1 daily league-wide podcast. You can get it on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get podcasts. That's also where you can find us if you search Locked On Dodgers. You can also find us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snider. I'm at Vince Samperio. DMs are open on all those accounts if you need to get a hold of us. If you need to get a hold of us, there's other ways like email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be with us when you get in your car or if you're at home. Tear Smart Device Podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.